Welcome to another episode of iCar's Driving the Conversation podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Wesselink, Associate Vice President of Marketing and Segment Development for iCar. And I want to thank you for joining us today. So the Driving the Conversation podcast looks at emerging issues that are happening within the collision repair industry. And in this podcast, we want to dive in to the new rules of engagement for attracting and retaining talent in the collision repair industry. So recently we launched the October 2019 edition of iCar's Collision Reporter magazine, where we focus specifically on the talent issue. Now in this magazine, we looked at a variety of different perspectives relative to the talent shortage and some of the solutions available to us. In that issue, we had a guest editorial that was written by the Collision Repair Education Foundation. So we thought in this edition of Driving the Conversation podcast, it would be great to have a special guest join us from the Collision Repair Education Foundation. So with me today, I have Brandon Eckenrode, who is the Director of Development for the Collision Repair Education Foundation, or what we affectionately call CREF. Brandon and I are going to talk about all things talent attraction and retention, which is a really hot topic right now in our industry and in the country. So Brandon, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So why don't we get started by telling us a little bit about the Collision Repair Education Foundation and what your role is.
Sure. So the Collision Repair Education Foundation has actually been around since 1991, where we were actually founded by a group of industry volunteers who were looking back at that time, and it's obviously still relevant to this day, the need for not only additional students to enter the industry, but them also to be well-trained. So we were founded under the name the iCar Education Foundation, where for the first roughly 10, 15 years, our purpose was around getting the iCar curriculum into the high school and college collision school programs around the country. So this is everything from a high school shop class, a community college, technical school and college, and even the for-profit schools. The goal was, again, to have that curriculum within the program so that these students were actually graduating with industry-recognized training, which would hopefully make them more productive and employable within the industry. And then in 2008, 2009, it was actually decided by both iCar and the foundation, as we are a separate entity, a 501c3, but it was decided by both groups and both boards that because iCar was the entity that was updating, maintaining the curriculum, that functionality of school distribution was actually transferred over to iCar, where that then allowed the foundation to be the purely philanthropic organization that it is today. So since 2009, we have been reaching out to the industry and trying to gather support for the high school and college collision school programs around the country. So that comes in all different types of support, whether it's monetary support for scholarships or in-kind support for tools, grants, equipment, supplies, things that these programs need but can't always sometimes afford. So that effort and outreach has been growing, as back in 2009, we were only a staff of 3, and now we're a large staff of 6. But again, the mission is around getting the students supported so that they have the best technical education possible.
So you and I just came back from SEMA.
Yes.
And, you get to experience a lot while you're out there. You get to hear a lot of the trends, a lot of the discussions about what shops and different facets of the industry are facing, both in terms of what they've been struggling with and what they predict they're going to be struggling with. And I'm sure you and I probably both heard a lot of the same thing. The big topic was talent and the talent shortage. Now, SEMA wasn't the first time we heard that, right? I mean, that's really been something that the industry's been keenly aware of for some time. So talk a little bit about the talent pipeline. I mean, where are we at as an industry, and what are the options for our students that are going to come into the industry, and how do they get started?
Sure. So what we specifically heard out at SEMA last week is every Wednesday of that week, we actually host a instructor roundtable meeting where any of the collision instructors from around the country that are attending SEMA for the past, it's got to be now close to 9 years, we gather them together to find out, what are their needs, what are they facing at the local level, what can we do better, what can we help support them with. And what we've now consistently heard the past couple of times is they don't have a lot of, being the instructors, they don't have a lot of difficulty placing students because there's such a demand out there. The bigger piece that they're asking us to help with and I think you're going to see the foundation start to get a little more involved is the attraction piece. And that meaning that some of these programs, we get phone calls somewhat regularly from instructors saying that if they don't get more students within their program, they will actually kind of be red flagged by their school as a program that might be closed in the near future. So that's concerning because we need as many of these programs to stick around as possible. So what we need to do a better job, and it's not just on the foundation, it's the entire industry, is help make these programs attractive learning environments. That means educating not only the administrators, it's the school counselors, it's the parents. It's currently being seen as almost like a second class type of program where these instructors, more the counselors and sometimes administrators see the body shop or collision repair or auto body, whatever the school might call their program, almost as a dumping ground, because there's been this continuous push for students that they have to go to four-year college and that's their only path to a successful future. And they take the quote-unquote bad kids and just say, you just go down to shop class, get out of my office, and I'm going to focus more attention on the students that have college potential. And when we have an opportunity to get in front of counselors, which we have in the past, is we try to educate them on the fact that, one, those quote-unquote bad kids are the same kids that are going to be repairing their family's car after an accident, that they're ensuring their safety in. So they should be caring about their education just like anybody else as when they're trying to help these students determine their future. And that these students, because of support from the industry and their job prospects, that I know we'll probably get into here in a little bit, is that these students are graduating sometimes with little to no student debt. And if they put in a good couple years of work, they can make an incredible living and career out of these different opportunities within this industry. So we're being tasked and being asked by these instructors to help the attraction, and that's something that needs to be done on a national scale, and we look forward to working together with the industry to make that possible.
So what do you think are some of the solutions to these barriers? What can we do to help the perception and the professionalism and the image of the industry so that when parents are helping their children make these professional decisions, that they can keep this in mind as a viable option, a professional option, and one that is going to potentially provide a lot of success for their children?
Sure. There's a number of things we can actually do. One is the basic education of showcasing to parents, counselors, administrators of all the different career paths that are available to them within the industry. And we're doing that. We're trying to do that through these career fair events that we're doing around the country, but then also letting these parents know that, to be within this industry, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have to work on vehicles the rest of your life. Even while that's obviously a great opportunity for them, there's opportunities in marketing and estimating and all the different companies that are out there that are looking for people to give them career paths. So making sure that they understand that that opportunity or those many different career paths available to them. When I get a chance to talk to these students, I remind them the fact that I was a English and journalism major, yet for the past 20 years that I've been working within the industry, so you never know where you're going to end up, so they need to keep an open mind. But then also things as basic as making these programs look like professional learning environments. Some of these program instructors have very limited budgets for tools, equipment, supplies that they're trying to afford to provide a quality technical education, and things that we can do as an industry are help kind of get involved with local schools to provide things as basic as brand new epoxied floors, brand new coat of paint on the walls, understanding that these students and instructors are going to get dirty while working on vehicles and things like that while they're in school. But if you've seen some of these programs, they've not been touched aesthetically since 50s, 60s, and 70s, and they don't look like attractive programs. So if there's junior high students or parents coming through, I don't sometimes blame them for the fact that when they kind of look inside a program, if it doesn't look like a professional learning environment, that would be kind of to make them not want to think that that's an option for their student or their child. There's things that we've been doing for quite some time. Working together with our friends at Cintas, local companies can sponsor brand new work uniforms for these students to make them look and feel professional within their programs. And it's kind of interesting that we've heard from instructors that of the $140 million in different types of support that we've provided to schools, they've shared with us that these uniforms that we've provided have made the biggest impact on their programs. So it's not the $1,000 welder or the major pieces of equipment or things like that these instructors say that these uniforms, as basic as it might sound, make the students feel and look professional. They're treated with a new level of respect from the guests and the administrators because they look like live working, industry professionals. So, getting involved with these local schools and making sure that they're attractive programs from many different levels, will help make them hopefully receive a higher quality of student, which will then only end up helping the industry by having a greater talent pool to choose from.
Okay, so talking about that professionalism in the industry, I know CREF recently launched the 100 Floor in 75 Days campaign, and your goal for that campaign was to do exactly that. It was to raise that professionalism of the programs at our educational schools. So tell me about that campaign and how it's going.
Sure. So we, through our friends at Rust-Oleum, for the past, it's got to be now 7+ years, through their support, they have allowed us to basically adopt one school per month, where as long as a school can commit to grinding and prepping their current floors, Rust-Oleum would send them enough epoxy coating and clear coat for their programs to be brand new epoxy floors so that they look like professional learning environments. And while that's been great to do once per month for the past couple of years, there are literally hundreds of schools out there that need this type of support when it comes to brand new floors, to make their programs look professional. So starting this summer, we tried to expand on the once per month to where we're trying to get more schools supported with this initiative. So we gathered up all of the schools, or an initial list of schools that had this need for brand new floors. We gathered what up their square footage was, because there's some programs that have 10,000 square feet, some have 1,000 square feet. So every school is kind of a different need for support. And we basically, through that square footage, determined what the sponsorship would be to help cover the cost of purchasing the Rust-Oleum brand new flooring. And it was an initiative that we started in the summer, and it's been kind of ongoing as a lot of schools. We didn't get the full list of 100 schools secured, but we are kind of in the mix where now we're ordering the Rust-Oleum paint we have about roughly 30 schools that have been adopted more or less by local businesses. So by us getting the word out about here's the school, here's where they're located, and here's the amount that would help that school, we've had a lot of new partners come on board with supporting. That's everything from a local paint company to a local body shop. So now, over whether it be the holiday or spring break, when the students are away from school, the instructors in school will be able to clear out the program, preps the floor, and then obviously then put down the coating so that these programs can look professional. So the initial list we're still working on, but we know, and we already have other schools that are waiting to be added to that list. So it's a very good opportunity for local businesses to invest in their local schools and showcase to these students that there's industry that's valuing their future and helping their programs look even better.
Yeah, I've seen some of those before and after pictures of the floors that you've been supporting, and it is remarkable the difference that it really makes.
Yes.
And I could imagine as a student or as a parent going to visit a vocational school with their children, that's going to have a huge impact on their decision as to whether or not they're going to support their children going into a vocational program. And it probably helps, too, to dispel some of the myths out there is what a body shop environment is today, which is far different than it was many years ago. We've got a lot more technology. There's a lot more advancements. So it's not the same environment today as it was years ago. So to see our schools and our educational programs reflect the industry, I think is a fantastic thing, and it's great work that's being done with that.
Absolutely. I mean, there's some programs, and you can't necessarily blame the instructor because, again, they've got such limiting budgets that they're spending their funds on the necessities of a program. And there's some programs, again, because they've not been able to do anything with their floors or the walls and things like that, that they look kind of like a dungeon where you feel like you almost need a tetanus shot before you leave the program. So for that business to help out and again get involved with the school, it helps the program look incredible. And we've seen instances where the instructors have actually turned the floor project into a class project. So it's actually the students that are the ones that are putting down the product, which makes them feel a little bit of a sense of pride and ownership that they're the ones that help make it possible. I know that not all schools they allow their students to get involved like that, and it's kind of a case by case scenario. But it helps the students feel like they made the school look its best.
You have some of those before and after photos on the website?
We do. Those, again, like you said, those pictures are incredible to see where the program was and then where it was brought to. And it's obviously a good selling point of us trying to get more companies involved to help out more schools. And again, that list is almost endless of the amount of different schools that are looking for that type of support to help make that flooring possible for them.
Great. So, we're talking a lot about talent attraction so that we can get more talent into the industry. But one of the reasons we need to do that is because we have a lot of talent leaving the industry. So recently, the foundation has released the Snapshot survey.
Yes.
And there's some really eye-opening statistics in there. Can you kind of walk us through some of these so that we can really understand where the state of the industry is right now with our talent?
Sure. The statistic that comes out, I think it's roughly about 3 years that we do the new Snapshot working together with ICAR, and it's almost the statistic that you sadly expect to see, but the main one is the fact that the industry is getting older. While the report that we have in the Snapshot says it's roughly a little over 40 years old is the average age, there's a lot of different markets that we go into where they would argue that it's close to 50 years old. So that's one thing that's obviously that we're trying to address as a whole. Part of that is where businesses can help show career paths to students to know where they have the potential of ending up. Sadly enough, some students graduate and they think they're going to make $100,000 and become millionaires. What we try to do as best we can is kind of tell them, here's where you're going to start out, but you have the potential of earning a great income, depending the position that you're going to go into or maybe the industry segment. But it's a matter of educating them on knowing that they have the potential if they're willing to put in the work, which some are and some aren't. But that way, if that business can help showcase what that path is, it helps that student to stay motivated, to stay within the business as opposed to possibly just sweeping floors. They get frustrated, the business gets frustrated, and they end up leaving. According to the data that we gathered from the U.S. Bureau of Labor, it showcases that our industry on average has one of the highest average salaries compared to other technical trades, as we are not alone within the collision industry of needing more people to come into the industry. When we've attended guidance counselor conferences, it's all the other technical trades who are there trying to educate them on that there's career paths available to them. So if anything, we're in competition with other trades to make our industry more attractive so that we're not just getting the leftovers. We want the best talent to come in because obviously they're going to be working on our vehicles. So that level of engagement with the students is always great. There's a good wealth of knowledge within that snapshot that a lot of the instructors use for recruitment purposes when they're having their own career days at their programs and having new students come in. So I highly encourage the industry to kind of take a look at that. It's available free for download on our website, which is collisioneducationfoundation.org. But we plan to update that every couple of years to make sure it's current.
So I know the foundation's role is primarily in developing talent for entry into the industry. It's providing them with those tools for education and providing the support to the schools that have those programs. Maybe not so much on the retention of talent once an individual has made it into the shop environment, but there's a real distinction between those individuals that have gone through professional programs and then maybe have had some level of mentorship along the way. And some of the performance and retention outcomes that we're seeing from those individuals that have had that opportunity to really connect with a mentor as part of their educational program. How does CREF participate in that? And are there any initiatives that you have that really talk about the value of that mentorship?
We cannot stress enough the fact that getting involved with the local schools where these businesses will most likely see these students coming out of and possible employees for them is the key factor in terms of what we always say is, this is a national problem with a local solution. So CREF plays a role in, we invite the industry to reach out to us where if they're not currently working together with the local school, that we want to help connect them. So it's a matter of connecting them with the local instructor, making sure the administration sees that there's businesses interested as well, because when the administration sees there is a group of businesses that are waiting for these students for employment purposes, that hopefully keeps them off the radar of possibly being closed. But these companies getting involved with the local schools, and sometimes I have to I hear comments from not instructors, but businesses saying, I tried hiring a student from this school. 5 years ago it was a disaster and I've kind of written them off, and I have to try to coach them on the fact that understand that was the past. We can leave it there, and what I'm inviting them to do is let's change what the product is coming out of these programs so that makes them more productive, efficient employees for them. So leave the past in the past and let's move forward and try to make sure that these instructors and students know what you're looking for so that they have the skill sets. Again, that's one thing that's listed in that snapshot around what those entry-level tasks that the industry is looking for from them. But when it comes to mentorship, we just actually launched our inaugural, what we call the Top Tech competition, which took place in St. Louis this past September. And it was held at Rankin Tech down in St. Louis, where we invited industry members from around the country to bring in a student or a newly entry-level staff member and their mentor to compete to showcase what that business, skill sets they have when it comes to mentoring their young entry-level staff. And there was a kind of a competition where they had to do some different types of repair work, but it helped showcase the fact that it's important to get involved with these students, and especially as this aging workforce continues, now more than ever we need the seasoned technicians that have been doing this for a while to help educate the younger upcoming staff that are coming in on the work as these vehicles are changing constantly. And you can't just repair cars today like you did even just a couple of years ago, let alone 10, 20, 30 years ago when some of these techs started. So that was a great event, and we plan on building off of that in the 2020 event that we're starting to put together initial details on now.
Well, it's remarkable everything that the foundation is doing right now to help support our learners and to help support the talent of the industry. And what's even more remarkable is you're doing all of that with 6 people. So it must really go to a testament to how you're putting those dollars that the organizations and that the individuals are providing to support those programs. You're really putting them to work back into the industry. So I commend you for all of the great efforts that the foundation is doing. With that in mind, how can individuals and organizations get involved with supporting crafting the initiatives that you're putting out there in the industry?
First of all, thank you to Stacy on the note about how well we've been trying to help out the schools. We obviously could not do that without the industry support. It's always, people are shocked by the fact of since 2009 we've been able to raise that amount. I'd like to also commend ICAR for their continued support as you set aside a percentage of every person when they attend an ICAR class that goes towards a possible donation to the foundation. And year after year, you are one of our largest contributors, so we could not do that without you. And what's also important to note, as we are a charity, is that we have 90 cents of every dollar donated goes back to helping out the schools. So we're lean in our operations and being responsible. But one of the biggest things that I can suggest to people is that these schools now more than ever need our help. And please reach out to us to find out how we can help connect you, not only with schools that you might not be involved with, but making sure if you are working together with schools that they're involved with us. We want to make sure that of the roughly between $10 to $15 million in support we provide, that these schools are on that opportunity to receive that support. But on the placement or the employment side, what we've been doing now is, in the past couple of years, is holding career fairs around the country to help get these students introduced to both local and national employers. So in 2020, we're actually pledging to have events in the top 25 markets that employ technicians around the country, in addition to some other markets. So just in the first part of spring, we're going to be in markets like Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, Kansas City, Chicago, Boston, Salt Lake City, and a number of others around the country. And these events now, where they initially averaged maybe 200, 300, there's some events that have over 1,000 students. So while everyone is, talking about the fact that they need people to enter the industry, these are events that are specific to the industry to help introduce them to both local high school and college collision students. So that full schedule of career fairs is also available on our website, which again is collisioneducationfoundation.org. But we will be coming into hopefully your market here shortly around the country, and look forward to helping to showcase to these students all the different career paths that are available to them.
Sounds great. Well, thank you for joining us today, Brandon. I appreciate your time and all of the insight on this really important topic.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Well, that wraps up today's episode of Driving the Conversation, a podcast on the new rules of engagement for attracting talent and retention. I hope you've enjoyed listening and maybe even learned a thing or two, and that you'll tune in to future podcasts by subscribing.